Hey guys, this is National Master Kevin Yang back at it with another video. Today we will be talking about another one of our games that we play against our fellow chess players on Fridays as usual. So let's get to it. So in this case, I was black. Our fellow chess club member, Mr. Pani, was white. So let's get on with the game. E4, E5, Knight F3, Knight C6. Completely fine. Controlling the center and all that. Knight c3, bishop b4, a3. Now this is very interesting. What is kind of weird about this move is if I take, like I did in the game, and white takes this way to try to come up with the move d4 later on, it looks weird, right? This pawn feels like it shouldn't be here. Like it should be here, and the bishop should be here. But unfortunately, the pawn is here. Now, I'm not saying that a3 is a bad move. I am just saying that when you consider the impact of after black takes the knight here, and after the pawn takes back, this bishop looks a bit worse off because this square is occupied by this pawn. And so white would have to move it up and then get the bishop out. Compared to, let's say, bishop b5 happened, right? Then bishop takes, then b takes. Now the bishop looks better off here. So just a small change. But okay, so after a3, here's how the game proceeded. I took b takes, knight f6, completely fine. I am attacking the pawn. Now after bishop e2, our chess club member did forget about the pawn, but that is okay. I gave him another chance. You know what? He decided it's best to let the pawn go. Knight takes e4, and after d3, another pawn falls. And at this point, you know, you're thinking, okay, I am down, what, 2 pawns? So how do you bounce back from here? Now, it's all about placing your pieces on the right square. And here's one thing. When you bounce back, you don't want to look like you're losing hope. And to me, this move, bishop d2, is a little bit like, where does he go? Right? Sort of like pointless. Where do you go? And so I would say start off with this move, bishop b2. The reason being that black wants to play knight d4 to trade off the knight and potentially attack the queen as well. But the bishop guards that square now as well. So I would start off with that move. Our chess club member started off with bishop d2, then bishop g4 came, pinning, looking to trade, and after h3, a simple move might just be to trade here, but I play knight d4. Knight d4 says after knight takes, bishop takes queen, and after the queen moves, the bishop takes, and the knight takes the pawn. So, unfortunately, our chess club member said, you know what? I prefer the 2 pieces. So, slowly, I just took the pawns, took the pieces, gave back the queen for pleasure, and I said, you know what? Try to demonstrate some technique. And here, our chess club member resigned, saying, you know what? You win. I can't do this. So, of course, that is a short game, but there is always another game. So, our other game that I played against our fellow chess club member starts with, once again, I am on the black side, our member's on the white side. So after e4, knight c6. Notice I played not e5, but I played the so-called Nimzovich defense that I like to show from time to time. And so after knight f3, people usually play e5, right? I said in my videos, I said knight f3 is the right move because after a move like d4, d5, after takes, it helps the queen come out, right? And after e5, bishop f5, and black players love this setup. So it's sort of like the Caro-Kann, but with the knight on c6. But I won't get into that. You've probably seen it in some of my previous videos about the Nimzovich defense and the black side. So let's get into this game. What happened was knight f3. And after d6, I decided I didn't want to play e5. I didn't want to transpose into the so-called Italian game, the good old gioco piano. I said, let's change it up. And so after d6, knight c3, e5, bishop e2, our chess club member just wants to develop perfectly fine. g6, castles, bishop g7, now b3, very good with development so far. So it's all peaceful. Our chess club member prevents my bishop from coming there, which is a good move because my knight wants to come in here. And if this knight isn't here to challenge it, then you know what that means. So this was a good move. I like this move. So after h3, I said h6. The reason being, I want to play king h7, I want to play f5. So after d3, I decided to strike. I said there is no whatsoever play going on in the center, but now's the point where I start making progress. And that's really what carries me throughout the game. So usually the white side says in counter to what black is doing here, well, white needs to protect the king side, but also start making movements on the queen side, right? White shouldn't be defending the entire time. Usually it's that the best defense is always a counterattack. Well, maybe I got that right, but you get the point, right? It's not always that you stand by your post and you just lay there, right? That's not the right thing to do. You gotta be aggressive sometimes. You gotta throw yourself out there. So after rook e1, bishop e6, notice I am just developing my pieces. After knight a4, you know what? I said, this knight looks kind of odd here. Let me just push it back because it only has one square. So I guess this knight a4 move might have been a little bit ill-intentioned. And what I mean by that is that there's probably a better move than that. Now, I know you want to relocate your knight, but here, well, there's no future here, right? So we have to realize that every time you make a move, it should always be with purpose. And I've always said that multiple times throughout my videos. Every move you make should be made with purpose. And to me, when our chess club member was making that move, it felt a little bit without purpose because, you get to the side, but you don't know what you're going to do next. Now, maybe the idea was getting this pawn up, but considering the fact that I could just push the knight back and gain a tempo attacking the knight at the same time, it felt a little bit without intention. So a6, a3. Now, I feel like a3 is a little bit, like the kind of plan where I'm sitting still, I'm not doing much, but here we need to realize that, okay, black is not sitting still on the king side, so there's no reason why white should be sitting still on the queen side. And so after a3, it seemed a little weird. I said, you know what? If White's not doing anything here. Why not just expand black's territory as well? Right? So it's all these small moves that make progress. See how I'm stepping into my opponent's position, getting ready to push this other pawn and really bring my forces forward, right? So all these plans are coming to life. And so after knight d2, you can see that my opponent is retreating. Um, it's not always a bad thing to retreat, but in this case, it was the right move because you have to realize that after knight takes d4 and after e takes d4, this knight is going to have to go back, right? And then afterwards, I have something like f4, or I have something like queen d7. And this pawn is sort of doing a really good job of pushing the white knight back. So let's say the white knight wanted to come over here, right? That would take 2 moves. And so even then, black could protect this pawn with c5. So just an example of how powerful this pawn is in controlling these 2 squares. Well, and black has the potential possibility of playing d5 himself. So after takes, d5. Sorry if I'm making this many arrows, but I think you get the point, right? That black is expanding and sort of like preventing white from committing to a plan. So that's my goal here. Let's go back. So after knight d4, there are other options, right? Of course, you don't have to take. You're not forced to take. So you could take on f5, for example, like the engine is suggesting. Or you could retreat to b1. Or you could do what our chess club member did in the game, which was retreat to the square. Now, after the move f4, the move f3, to me, it was like you're putting yourself in a wall, you're putting yourself in a cage, you're locking it up. That's good in protecting yourself. However, we have to realize that it's sort of, there used to be this sort of line, right? The knight, the bishop, come this way. The knight comes this way, right? But after this pawn sits here, this communication is gone, right? So that's why I express a sort of concern over this move. Like, I get it that you're preventing from advancing one step further, but it just does a little bit more harm to you than it does to me. So let's continue. So I played knight e6. I said, you know what? I could have played c5, then knight c6, or I could have played knight c6 right away. The reason being, I want to bring the queen in. Looks kind of fun. So after b4, which I thought was kind of weird, considering that, there was little movement on this side, and all of a sudden this pawn starts to come alive. It felt a little bit without purpose again, right? So one of the hardest things in the game is coming up with a strategy. The second hardest part in the game is anticipating what your opponent's going to do. That's probably hardest, but we can flip those things around. So I'll get to this point in another video, so stay tuned for part 2 against Mr. Potty. Thank you.